That's a demon?
Yeah.
Was that you suffocating Jim? Oh, Jesus!
I'm picturing like a bird cage right now.
No. I grabbed my fucking neck.
Seriously?
Yeah. Oh. Oh. Something just grabbed my backpack. Yeah.
You just moved that ball?
Is there anything inhuman down here?
I hear growling.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to the Paranormal Nut Podcast. I'm Sean, that's Jim, and with us today we have one of the most guests I've been excited for in a long time. It is Tim Binnall, who will save us all of Binnall of America. The revival, might I add.
That's
Tim,
a new one for me. Thank you.
Yeah, right? I thought of it earlier and I'm like, I gotta use it. Yeah, so I guess before we dive into who are you, where you're from, what got you to where you are, I just wanna touch on that revival part because you obviously host Binnall of America, as I just said. But the revival, it looks as though you were doing Binnall of America for a long time before you kind of, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth for you. Can you tell me that story?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on the show, guys. So it's called Binnall of America, the revival, because back in 2018, I started the show in 2005. So we're coming up on our 20th anniversary this April. And we were pretty much one of the first paranormal podcasts ever. And I did the show from 2005 in seasonal chunks of like 33 episodes rather than like a weekly show. So sometimes the show would come out like on a Monday. Sometimes it would come out on a Tuesday. It was just kind of like completely random whenever I had these shows taped and everything. And it evolved over the years. We were doing live shows for a while and everything. And then like in 2018... life just got really busy and we were on our 10th season and I was like, I think 10 is a good way to go out and sort of end the seasonal format of Binnall of America. So that was like in 2018. And then kind of puttered around for a few years, did I believe it was 2018. It may have been 2019, but I'm pretty sure it was 2018. But either way, I came back in 2020 and did like a sort of a pandemic show weekly on Friday nights. We kind of recovered the pandemic as it was happening. And, everyone was kind of sick of the pandemic by like the end of the spring of 2020. Little did we know. And a lot of people were like, well, why, I want you to do paranormal, dude. This is your Binnall of America. So we kind of brought the show back in the summer of 2020 and did like a 10 episode run of paranormal shows. And just, I kind of kept, I had sort of holiday shows that we would do every year. So I never ultimately like stopped altogether. I think we've done shows every year, like since 2005. But essentially, I started to get kind of the itch like in 2023. And my buddy Steve Berg launched his podcast. And I was like, well, I was super Luddite and only I would record the shows on landline with like a splicer that plugged into a Radio Shack, like splicer that plugged into a digital audio recorder that was like recorded like you see like reporters carrying around. So like the technology was so behind the times that it was becoming harder and harder to even like do the show because most people just don't have landlines and shit anymore, or even like cell phones, or they would want to come on Skype and it just really wouldn't work. So finally, Steve launched his show, and I was like, you got to show me what you're doing, dude. So I can, because it was like, he's like, oh, it's super easy, man. It's super easy. So he kind of like walked me through it and really was super encouraging because he started out as a Binnall of America fan and was like, you got to bring the show back. You got to bring the show back. So that was it. So I'm like, all right, let's do it. Let's bring the show back because I really enjoy doing it. And I had the itch to come back. And I was like, well, the big thing that was keeping me from really kind of coming back big time was all the technical shit. So once I kind of got over all that, it was like, all right, we're relaunching Binnall of America. And that's where the revival came from because we were reviving the show and completely changed the format in a sense where it's like, instead of seasonal, we just run the show every week. We've been doing the show every week now for like almost a year and a half. I think we're up to episode like 60 something coming out this Wednesday and with no intention of, no plans on stopping anytime soon. I'm really enjoying what we've been doing, really enjoying being back. And it seems like folks are enjoying it too. So I hear from a lot of people that are like, oh, it's so great you're back. Really enjoying the shows. And, it's just great to have you. So I hear people sometimes who are like, oh, holy shit, I didn't know you were back. I just figured it, I just looked it up because I used to listen to you back in like 2016 or whatever. And they're like, oh, I just discovered that you're back. And it's like, well, I got good news for you, dude, because there's like 60 episodes you're going to be able to listen to, and catch up to where you left off. So it's, it's cool. It's great to be back.
That's awesome. And, I did my due diligence and I probably binged, I don't know, 5 or 6 hours just today and then like an hour or two a day before. And some of the guests you have on, I feel ashamed to even call myself a fan of the paranormal with the amount of experience and like research and care they dive into some of this stuff. And I'm like, wow, it is, not to gatekeep myself out of here, but you're walking with some heavy hitters as far as paranormal research goes, and I love it. It's the kind of stuff I could probably spend too much time than I should listening to.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been around a long time, so I've talked to just about everybody, that's around, or especially like the first sort of incarnation of Binnall of America. It's just great, That's one of the best things about having a podcast is like if there's something that interests you, you can find a guest to talk about it, no matter what the topic is, and you have a venue to ask questions that normally you wouldn't get to if you were just a listener of a podcast. That's kind of how Binnall of America started in the first place, because I was a overnight janitor. I graduated from Syracuse University with a degree in TV and film, and radio, actually, ironically enough. And then got out of high school, I got out of college, and my dad, my late father, was like, all right, here's how much you owe, and here's the want ads. So I went and worked as an overnight janitor at my old high school, just kind of trying to make ends meet to figure out what I was going to do next. And was listening to Coast AM the whole time. And was like, oh, I really would like to, I have questions for these folks who were on the show, and because I love the paranormal. And then it was like, but I'm working, I can't like get on hold here all night to try and ask them a question. And I have more than one question. So, and around this time, this was like 2005, so 20 years ago, there wasn't anything as such a thing as podcasts. And so what I got hooked up to was I'm a big wrestling fan. So I was a subscriber to a wrestling news site, and they would have like daily audio updates, they were called, and they were MP3s. And you would download the daily audio update. And it was like the guy who runs the news site would be like, here's Monday Night Raw results. Here's the latest news going on here, there, everywhere. And you would download it and you would like put it on your, whatever the thing before the
MP3 players.
Yeah, MP3 player.
The Zoom.
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever the it's not the iPod. Was it the iPod?
It was
Yeah,
the iPod.
It was the it was like an iPod, but it was like the little tiny one.
Nano.
Nano, no screen, nothing.
Yeah.
Right. So it was like, so you would download them and listen. So I was like, why don't I fucking record? Why don't I just interview these people and turn it into MP3s and put it out as like coast to coast, like a radio show? And so that was kind of where
you invent the podcast?
No. People, no, not at all. But like,
no, I'm saying
I think a lot of people kind of came to the same conclusion around the same time, where it was like, well, this music MP3s, like, why can't we just why can't we just do interviews as MP3s? That was kind of, I mean, so a lot of shows like sprung up like around that time too. So not many are left, but we
outlasted
made
them
it.
all.
Oh, I'm just
Highlander
gonna say,
style.
Can only
I'm
be
just
one.
gonna say you are the first one.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I can't imagine what well, I guess I don't have to imagine. I can go back and listen to the original Binnall of America and see what those early podcasts were like. And I mean, it's
Can I still download them today?
Yeah.
they're
You
all
can
on
go through,
Spotify, right?
They're
Oh,
all on
shoot.
Spotify and on YouTube. I think we got the first 3 seasons archived on YouTube. We're working on it, but it's a process because there's like hundreds of shows at this point
Oh, yeah.
to put over
this-
there. But I mean,
this-
I forget how I got off track there. But yeah, that's kind of how it all started and everything. And so it was like, yeah, that's what inspired me to do this was just wanting to talk to these folks and realizing that there was a way you could do it that wasn't too difficult.
Yeah, I draw a lot of parallels to your story, and I think most people in the paranormal realm do, especially when they also start a podcast or some form of content creation, right? I caught coast to coast one night driving my I just got like satellite radio in my car and caught it one night. I'm like, what is this? And then I went online and started listening to everything I could. I think it was an episode on like time slippage and stuff. And avid lover of X-Files and all that stuff. So I guess you dove into it a little bit, but I guess who is Tim Binnall? I guess.
Well, that kind of was the beginning of the
Yeah.
the bio, the background. That was sort of how I got started in all this. I had like a lifelong interest in the paranormal. Got out as a kid, went to Syracuse. Through high school, college.
I'm sorry about that.
Wow, well.
I'm from upstate New York, so I can make
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. I was like, what's that all about?
Yeah.
So there's
So
something
much
I don't know.
snow.
This
That's all.
this guy's a dick.
Yeah.
Leaves.
Well, I had a great time up there. Too much fun, to be honest. And so not much time for the paranormal, which is kind of a bummer because it's like that was really the sort of like the peak of the Art Bell kind of years, like late 90s, early 2000s. So, but I got out of college, then I got into the paranormal, working overnight, listening to Coast, and then launched the show essentially in 2005. Started interviewing like everybody I possibly could. Never wanted to be like one kind of show. I mean, even the name, like I was joking with somebody recently, like the name is, it's like one of those things, if you go back and change, it'd be like, oh, I probably shouldn't have called it Binnall of America because it like makes no sense. Like no one knows what the fuck that means. It's not like you guys like the paranormal nut. Like there's no paranormal in there. I suppose I always kind of was appreciative of the fact that like we do go off the beaten path and do other stuff that's not necessarily paranormal, but it's like fringe topics. Like we did a show on the Amish and Rum Springer. We've done pro wrestling shows. We've done like true crime and stuff like that. So it's like anything that kind of vaguely interests me, I feel like I can do because it's Binnall of America. Just my evolution in this as I talk to people over all these years. So that was kind of it. And then around 2015, late 2015, as I said, I was always a big fan of Coast to Coast. They brought me in to work as sort of a fill-in guy on their website. Late 2015, they wanted to expand the website, so they started doing news articles at Coast to Coast AM, brought me in to be their news article guy, and then that slowly evolved to the point where now I'm the senior news editor for Coast to Coast AM. Work, 5 days a week, write about the paranormal all day, every day, working in the paranormal. It's my full-time job.
It's got to be the best.
Living the dream.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's pretty weird to go from being a janitor listening to Coast to now like I work for Coast to Coast. I'm their news editor. It's quite a I couldn't have possibly imagined it would have worked out that way when I was mopping floors, but that's just how it happened. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, I've done hundreds of podcasts, and then now through the news part of Coast to Coast AM, I've now written, I think last time I checked, it's some back of the envelope math, like 6,000 articles on the paranormal. So it's like I'm pretty well versed in this at this point, and I always want to know everything about everything at this point. I really don't want to be a specialist on any one topic, even though I think you're more likely to find success in the paranormal if you are some kind of specialist. But to me, I've always kind of wanted to be able to bounce around to all the different stuff, which has helped me with this Coast to Coast joke.
Yeah, I mean, I think we never wanted to be specialized or anything. We have done a fair amount of ghost investigations and haunted houses and stuff, but that's just because it's the most easily accessible because we know where the locations are and all that stuff. But we definitely want to get out there more and do some, cryptid hunting, Bigfoot hunting.
I do a lot of the alien articles for us because I just extraterrestrial. I don't know, just always interested.
Articles. You don't do articles. You
Or
don't
not
do
articles,
videos.
Yeah, videos. Sorry,
There
sorry.
you go.
TikTok, should I say? No, just kidding.
Yeah, he puts together memes.
There you go.
Well,
I'm
it's
the
what you
meme
need
guy.
to do these days.
Yeah,
you have to generate so much content to be relevant. And
Yeah.
we were just talking with a author. Actually, a video comes out tomorrow. And like we're talking about the parallels of self promotion of being like an author in the indie space and just being a content creator. It's like, yeah, no one's gonna scream louder about you than yourself. But then also that can, get very annoying to some people listening. Like, relax, guy. But
Yeah, it's a whole new world from like when I started. And I'm not a big self promoter like at all. I'll come on shows like this because you guys invited me on and stuff, but I'm not like out trying to get on shows or
yeah.
trying to speak at events or anything like that. I'm old enough in this that I kind of know the upsides and the downsides of everything. So it's like, oh, all right, and I'm very fortunate because I have the Coast to Coast gig, so I don't really need to sing for my supper per se in the paranormal, which is really, I'm very, very lucky in that regard. So it's kind of taken the heat off of me where I don't have to be like one of those people that's like pushing their shit all the time
Mhm.
and is on like all this stuff. And I mean, I understand why people do it. And maybe someday I'll get off my ass and sort of will really rebrand, be branded on all that stuff. But to me, it's like, oh, it's kind of nice not to. I mean, the show gets posted. We post it once on Wednesday on Facebook, Twitter, and Blue Sky, and then kind of bump it again the next day, and then that's it. I'm not like I don't cut clips or put it on TikTok or anything like that. I just don't really have the time for it, and it's kind of like cheesy to say, but I do feel this way. But like the show is kind of like an acquired taste, where it's kind of like in my mind, Binnall of America, it's like I like that it's kind of still underground, even though it's been around for like 20 years. Like there are a lot of people like I'll go to have them on my show, they don't know who the fuck I am, and it's like, all right, that's cool, because I'm not a huge self promoter, but I've been around forever. And when people do stumble on the show, then they're like, oh, holy shit, this is like 500. Yeah,
This is the guy.
hundreds and hundreds of shows, and they go back 20 years, and they're like with people that are like icons and legends and shit that aren't even around anymore. So, I'll put our archive up against any show that's out there. Like we have a crazy fucking rich, detailed, illustrious archive of shows going back 20 years. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of like I said, it's kind of an acquired taste. It's a little bit, it's kind of like the show for those in the know, if you will.
Yeah, and kind of all paranormal media, but not even just paranormal. Most podcasts kind of has its own acquired taste. You either like it or you don't. And
Right.
if you don't like it, hey, there are plenty more options out there for you, but we'll be here if you do. And yeah. So
yeah, absolutely. Believe me, I've heard from plenty of people over the years who don't like me and don't like my show. So it's like, oh, all right, whatever, dude. Don't don't listen. I don't really give a fuck. Like,
don't have to make it a personal thing. Like,
Yeah.
relax.
yeah, or they like
But,
write to you and they're like, I hate the way you talk and laugh all. It's just like, all right, then don't listen to the show, dude. This is how. This is just. This is just how the show is.
You took the time out to write to me. Like, what do you want me to do?
What makes me laugh is like that hate engagement. It's still engagement though, so it does nothing but help you anyway.
Well, back in the day, like, we don't have to. We're not getting like fan mail. We're just getting like YouTube comments. So if you do yell at us, like, it helps. But like back in the day, to like send an email to somebody, like, and go out of your way to start yelling at them, or like, all right.
Yeah, it's odd. It's certainly odd, but I think that I don't get as much correspondence period anymore because it's just kind of like I just kind of do my shit and that's it. I'm not really like begging people to
blinders on. And,
yeah. I just kind of keep my head down, and keep putting out shows.
Yeah. What's the line? No. Was it the opening? No commercials, no subscriptions,
no network, no rules. At the end of the day,
love
no comparison.
Comparison.
Well, that was really. I mean, look, I think Spotify probably puts commercials in there. I have no fucking idea, but I don't put commercials in.
No, unless you do something. I mean, I listened to 5 hours of you today, and I didn't hear a single.
It might depend if you're premium or not.
I have premium though, so I don't know.
Yeah. So there's probably like an ad at the beginning, which makes it kind of move. But I don't have any control over that. I just need a distributor for the show. So it's like, but yeah, no Patreon, none of that. It's even. I even feel bad. Like the guy who runs my YouTube's like. He hasn't said anything, but I'm sure he kind of like grits his teeth. But like, I don't even promote the YouTube. Like, we have the YouTube channel, and it's just like, I'm not like and subscribe and bang that like button or whatever the fuck.
Oh, you're gonna hate us at the end of this, right? No, and no YouTuber wants to do that. No podcaster wants it. We just want to make our content and create it.
Yeah,
and it's just like that's the because.
Yeah, no, it's very It's just it's a strange new world, man. It really is. So yeah.
So I guess comparatively to when you were doing it back in 2005 and the early days, what's the biggest difference between now and then? Not because we kind of talked about the technology and stuff, but like in the paranormal zeitgeist and communities, what's the biggest change you've seen?
Probably the UFO community. UFO community used to be sort of like a close-knit group of ragtag eccentrics who were like with some serious credentials like your Stan Friedmans and stuff and Rich Dolan and guys like that and Bruce Maccabee and they were like old timers. They had been around when I got in 2005. They had Stan and some of these other folks had been around for like decades doing this. They were kind of on their way up. Or at the very least at the peak of their sort of like prominence. And so it's kind of been interesting. I've sort of watched ufology, that era of ufology, the sort of like the MUFON era, even though MUFON's still around, it's kind of like a shell of itself. And, MUFON and just the whole like convention circuit thing that was going on back then. And, it was like a different world. It was just really like a different world. And now it's like this UAP era that began like in 2017. It's even a different fan
disclosure every 2 years or whatever they're saying.
Right. Yeah.
It's almost to make a wrestling, comparison back. Like it's like the Attitude Era versus today, where everything's felt more like personal and real and gritty. Now it's just kind of everything's like sanitized and like I don't even want to use the word sanitized. More polished. Is that the word I'm trying to look for? I don't know.
I feel like looking at it now, you see people just trying to almost like try to make money off of it. There's like I don't want to name any names and put shade on people, but there's a certain doctor out there that goes around throwing flares in the sky, saying there's we did yoga and they came kind of thing. But he's like, I know all the secrets, but I can't tell anybody because like No,
I think
it's
those
like,
people-
just tell the secret already.
Yeah, I think all those people existed. I think it's just percentage-wise, you have so many more people.
I think you knew who I was talking about, though.
I know
Yeah.
exactly who you're talking about, but he was around back when I got started too. But
Yeah.
the difference, like, is so these were all like independent dudes and
Yeah.
ladies who were doing this on their own out of curiosity and wonder about the subject. And post 2017, it's those folks are up if they're still alive, or pushed to the fringes in favor of government whistleblowers and like so-called insiders and
Psyops.
people.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say
They're all
psyops.
psyops.
And people who say they have connections and who fucking get info and leak it out and everything, and alleged whistleblowers. And so it's like, it's no longer sort of like this grassroots collection of eccentrics who are curious about the mystery. Now it's like these sort of people who are driving the story, and the fan base, instead of it being sort of like a much more interactive thing where, like, if you were someone who was interested in this, you could pick it up and kind of be a part of the community. Now it's like you can be a part of the UAP community, but it's like you're always going to be on the outside because the people who are making the waves are these like former government people and shit, these heavy-handed whistleblower types and
Or former rock stars.
Yeah, I was gonna say lead
Yeah,
singers
exactly.
of like Blink 182 and shit.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the biggest change I've seen. Like I a lot of my friends they hate the UAP acronym because it's just kind of like lame, and we have our hearts are tied to the UFO thing. But I feel I always use it to designate this modern post 2017 era, because that's not ufology. That's like, this is UAP era, and it's a completely different animal. It really, really is.
I definitely like your description that there are people driving the narrative now, opposed to people kind of like discovering it. I think that's a good way to kind of mentally frame that in my head. Where everything now is just content, where back in the day it's just like, these are the stories and we're finding them, you know.
The way I look at it, if you see it on the news, it's most likely a psyop because the government won't allow that.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's a big mess. I mean, there's like people that are, I don't know how old you guys are, but like I'm in my 40s. So there's like people like our age or whatever, like that grew up on this and now they're in the government.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like more open to
Pushing
wanting
it
to
out
know
there,
more.
yeah.
Yeah, which I think is happening. But they don't put the time or the effort in to kind of look into how a lot of this is bullshit. So they're easily taken in by people who get to the congressman or whatever and are like sharing all these crazy fucking stories that don't have any basis in reality or any evidence to back them up. But they're like, well, oh wow, they're like, oh, this guy's a UFO researcher, so he knows what he's talking about, so this must be true. And it's like, no, a lot of this stuff's bullshit.
Well, that's what I was kind of hinting at earlier when I was talking about all the people you bring on your show, and you can feel the amount of effort and work they they put into all this stuff through your podcast. And then you see half these people they make, and I'm literally making fun of ourselves right now, like a 10-minute video, and then they're allegedly experts. Like, that's not how it works, but
Yeah, well, it happens, unfortunately. That's just the way it is. You had to really, before you could kind of like just sort of have a platform. Now, like back in the day, it was a lot harder to have a platform. Like at best you could, like, even before the podcast was like, not many people were podcasting back then. So it was like, you had to, if you wanted to like get your voice out there, you had to have like a blog or something like that. Or that was like the main thing.
The
like
forums.
Forums and stuff. Now it's just like a lot of smaller bits of entertainment combined with information vying for people's attention. It's kind of like, it's kind of a mess. Because before, if like you really want to be into this, you had to like sit and fucking read like a dude's long blog entry and figure out, and kind of
or a
assess
book.
what he's exactly. That's I was trying to keep it sort of in on internet terms. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Before even that, it was like if you really wanted to get into this, you had to read like all the books and everything. Now it's I would be very surprised that if most of the community, for a lot of these communities, if they even read all the books that come out. There's tons of books that come out, but I don't know how many people are actually fucking reading
Yeah. Not enough, clearly.
I read Ghost Hunters for Dummies.
Yeah, exactly.
No, there are plenty, and I think that is a target demographic we want to look at is more authors in the paranormal space and try to get them on so they can, I mean, at least show what people should be looking at, opposed to, we joke that we're, the worst types of people and our opinions are always right, but these people who put the like time in, that's who you need to listen to. So going shifting gears, and not really, but kind of shifting backwards back to the podcast aspect of it.
Yeah.
We got, you don't have to give me your worst if you don't want to, because you don't have to throw anyone under the bus, but your best and or worst podcast experience.
Well, I mean, there's two sort of. I'm going to speak in like broad terms. So, but the best, there's two sort of best experiences are like kind of what we were talking about before, and even I don't do this anymore because things have changed so much. But like back in the day, now it's like Amazon. But like back in the day, you go to the bookstore and you could like go to the New Age section in Barnes and Noble or whatever, and if you saw something you liked that was interesting, I would like write down the name of the author and the book and everything. Then I'd go home and write to them, email them, find them on the nascent version of social media, if they were even on there yet, and pitch them like, I got a podcast. It's like a radio show. And you'd have to get them to, you'd ask if they wanted to do an interview about their book. And that was like the coolest part. It still is, really, if you have a podcast that's kind of going well and everything. I'll hear about a book or whatever online, then I'll find it, email the author and everything. It's harder to book people in general nowadays, but that's like one of the best aspects of having a podcast. I mean, just the friendships I've made over the years with all these different folks. I've seen people come along like Josh Cutchin. He just came into the scene halfway sort of through the Binnall of America run, and he hadn't even written a book or anything. His first book was like coming out soon. And we've become really good friends over the years, and I've watched his career like grow and blossom, and I've seen him become a dad and shit. It's just like, this is crazy. He was just a kid when I met him down in Dallas originally. So it's that. I mean, that's really the joy of the job. It's kind of a cliche. It's like, it's the friends you made along the way, but it really is, in a way. It is the connections you make, the friendships. Yeah, the friendships you make, and learning new things. I mean, that's just, to me, the best experience is sort of just picking up all this new information, and it's always a thrill when I get a guest book. Like I'm going to be talking to Tim Renner in a couple of days. He won't be on for like a few weeks on Binnall of America, but he just wrote a book on hermits. Yeah, and it's kind of like, it's just to throw back to sort of the book thing. It's like, it's a real joy when you get a good book and you sit down, you read it, and you're just super into it. And it's like, and now I get to talk to the guy that wrote this book and really get into all the shit that really interested me about this book. Like, I'm really looking forward to this interview in a few days, because it's like, I even messaged him this morning, and I'm like, bro, I read the book this weekend. It's fucking awesome. I cannot wait to talk to you. So I mean, those are like the real highlights of the gig. And the downside, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you go from passively enjoying the content to actively enjoying it and being almost a part of the conversation, opposed to just listening, that's my favorite part.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the real, and I've just done so many shows. Just the laughs over the years, the lore that kind of develops after doing it for all this time, where it's like, legendary moments and famous incidents and crazy shit that happened on the show, and wild guests and weird, weird topics that we've covered and stuff. It's just like the lore has built up so much over the years. And so conversely, the worst part of, the worst aspect of it in a sense is just, is losing a lot of friends over the years, not like from acrimonious situations, but they die.
Yeah.
A big part of Binnall of America, the original, was our annual holiday special with Stan Friedman. He was the first guy I ever interviewed. And every December we would interview him on the last episode before Christmas. And we did that. We had 14 holiday specials over the course of the original run before Stan died. And then, then Stan passed away. It was just like that. It was devastating. It really was. It was heartbreaking. And the original Binnall of America was built on a lot of these old timer legends who were in the paranormal and who are no longer with us. I really got into this whole scene in a way from reading Jim Mars. So every season we would start with Jim Mars, and we made it all the way through 10 seasons. He passed away like less than a month after the season 10 premiere. So it's like, these guys were kind of heroes of mine, and I got to become friends with them. And it was kind of like the whole thing about being a janitor and then winding up working for Coast to Coast after listening to all these years. It was like to go from listening to Stan on Coast to Coast to having my own show and interviewing Stan, and then becoming friends with Stan, and being able to call just call him up, and he knew who I was, and it was like, this is the fucking coolest. I cannot believe my life. It was like, this is amazing. Like, be like, hey, Stan, it's Tim. Hey, Stan, it's Tim Binnall. How you doing? Oh, Tim, how you been? What's going on? And so it's time for our annual holiday show. I know when you want to do it. And it was just like, it was just so cool. It really was
gotta
cool.
pinch yourself and be like, is this what we're doing now?
Yeah. Like, when I started out, another guy was like Lauren Coleman. Coleman, thank God he's still with us. I just talked to him like in January for Binnall of America. I've been interviewing him for close to 20 years now, because he was like on the back half of that first season. And, with Lauren, I've spent so much time with Lauren, and it's like, he's been kind of a mentor to me. And, these old timer guys, the trailblazers, let's not call them old timers, the trailblazers.
Yeah, really.
Who really set the stage, and having gotten the chance to know them over the years, like Stan, Jim Mars, Brad Steiger, it's like, then when they pass away, it's rough, man. I won't lie. It's like, wow, I remember the day when I heard Stan die. It's like, I still kind of can put myself in that day, because it was that like, oh Jesus, like it was world shattering for me. So that's the worst part. You make these friendships. In some cases, you make these friendships with people who were like heroes of yours. Mm-hmm. And then we all getting older, dude. We're all getting older. It's I have people on the show now that were like my age when I started. So it's like, oh shit, this is crazy. Like, these people are like 20 years old. This is wild.
Yeah. I can't even imagine putting myself there in like 20 years from now, and, thinking about some of the people that might not be around that I've gotten to know and just gotten to know. I know me and Jim kind of are just dipping our toes. We've been paranormal fans our whole life, but really there's a difference between being like an enthusiast and then really like jumping into, the lifestyle. Right. And you start talking with people, and, you get, I think a friend of the show, Bill Empty Casket, he said this one thing to me. He's like, everyone's got a piece of a puzzle that no one knows how big the puzzle is. And, to hear about some of those people who may have had more than just one or two pieces that have been doing it for so many years. And now, those are interviews I'll never get to have, which, always sucks to think about, but there's there's stuff's out there. But
I used to give my friends, like other podcast friends, shit because they didn't want to have Stan on, because Stan used to do like every show that asked him to do. God bless him. And they were like, oh, everybody's interviewed Stan, man. Everyone's interviewed Stan. I don't even know what I'd ask him and everything. And I'd be like, dude, it's like the Rolling fucking Stones, dude. If you don't have fucking one of the goats he's at your disposal to come on and fucking talk. And if you don't do that, like, you're not, your podcast isn't worth the proverbial tape that it's recorded on, man. Like, fucking, these are the real. You have the chance to talk to a titan, and you're afraid to because everybody else has. Like, then that should be the challenge, man. Then you bring something new to the table that no one else has. So yeah, it was a wild times back then.
Yeah. I think a lot of new podcasters out there, and us including, you never want to, like, you're always hesitant to even ask the question, and we've kind of are getting over that. And
Not me.
Well, that's what I was about to say. We started to kind of get over that, and like, worst they can say is no, they don't have time for you. But you know, just asking anyone, and we started doing that, and we got some announcements. We're gonna
you miss every shot you don't take.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. No, believe me, it's changed a lot over the years. When I first started, it was like there weren't any other. There was maybe like a handful of shows. There were the national shows like Coast and a couple other ones, and then there was like a handful of podcasts like me and a few other ones. It was a way easier to get some of these big names on your show. Like that first season's like a murderer's row of paranormal like legends, like all timers. The first like 3 seasons or so, like everybody you could possibly, like Jacques Vallée and Lorne and Brad Steiger and David Icke and John Lear and Stan and the list goes on and on and on. Nick Redfern, like just all kinds of real heavy hitters and stuff. Nowadays, first of all, it's like most guests, I'd have to go through it and look, but like most guests have their own show. And it's like that was unheard of back then. Like if I was interviewing another podcaster, it was like a big deal. It was like, oh, this is a rarity. We're talking to someone else who also does this. And we kind of like, but now it's like almost every person I have on the show either has a podcast or is affiliated with some podcast. It's really like, it's just crazy. Really, it makes it a lot harder to book people because when you're like, we were talking tonight with you guys, and I'm like, I got to get out of here at fucking 8:30 because I'm taping a show.
Yeah,
I'm taping a Binnall of America at fucking 9 o'clock tonight. So it's and the person I'm interviewing, she has a podcast, so we had to like squeeze my stuff in with her podcasting schedule. So it's just crazy. And I mean, it's cool. I kind of like it in a sense because everybody's got a voice, and there's more collaboration in a sense like that. Like I don't begrudge anyone for having a show. It's just crazy how everybody has a podcast. It's really it's like fun.
It becomes easier, especially with like StreamYard, and mics aren't that expensive.
Oh, it's super easy now.
You can get an HD camera pretty cheap. But I can't imagine the days, and I wouldn't have the balls to do this now, where, like Art used to do, just people calling in, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't vet these people. You have no idea who they're going to be. You got your finger on the dump button just in case. But that's the era I kind of miss because like the variety, like, you don't know who you're going to get. Now it's like, I can do a deep dive on Tim Binnall and see what he's all about and check and make sure like he's not gonna completely botch my podcast, and not that you ever would, but
no, I know what you mean though. I know what you mean.
And you can taking a risk on someone these days isn't as much as it used to be when you knew nothing about people. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, I have all my questions here, and we're kind of answering all of them. It's like you're, good at this. No, I'm saying you're really good at this. It's like you know exactly what to talk about and all the notes to hit.
I got a question.
Oh yeah,
sure.
The podcast setup, did it sort of look like a Halo LAN party back in the day?
I don't know what that means.
Like Halo on the Xbox, where you connect all the cables together and everybody's just like, you got 10 of your boys in the house playing Halo with you.
Yeah, I used to have the recorder little piece here, but it was like, it's just like a little box that like plugged into like an old school landline with like the phone and the fucking twisty wire.
You're doing it over the phone. You weren't doing it in person, right? Yeah.
No,
Oh.
I've done a handful in person, but nothing
Yeah.
like that. So, but it was like
Okay,
it was all like complicated with wires and shit, and like
Yeah.
the thing would kind of shit the bed sometimes. I'd have a couple episodes where like the sound quality is really bad and everything because like the input wasn't plugged in the right way or it was twisted the wrong way. You can't. There was no playback or anything back then. It was like you just kind of did it.
You just full
So.
sent it. That was it.
Yeah,
We're doing it in one take, you know.
pretty much.
Well, I guess the one question we haven't touched upon, what's the one piece of advice you could essentially give your younger self, or I guess some newer paranormal podcast people in the space today?
Well, that's a lot to unpack, but I guess the first thing
They
would
are
be
loaded questions, yeah.
Well, I mean, this sounds kind of gatekeepery. I apologize if it does, but this is just how I came up. So I kind of feel this way. That was like I said, I started out listening to Coast before I ever launched Binnall of America.
Mhm.
I listened to the show for like probably a good year, 2 years. And listened to like as much as I possibly could before, and I mean before I started Binnall of America. It's because partially the idea really didn't come to me till a couple years into listening to Coast, and also because like there even back then there wasn't even a flicker of the idea of podcasting. Period. So it was just like, well, I'm not gonna. Maybe the options there would have been like I have to go to, and I even did kind of kick around the idea as like a young guy, like, oh, maybe I could go to like a local radio station and have a show like Coast to Coast. That's how impossible it was to fathom the idea of having a show, period. So I guess the point being is like fucking learn as much as you can before you jump in there and decide you're going to become the next podcaster or whatever. Like know as much as you can and shit. I find like a lot of places and stuff like, and I mean I get it. I get this is the way it is, and maybe this is like old man like yells at cloud, but it's like a lot of people like they have to get on every fucking social media platform with their thing, and it's like you're missing the forest for the trees. It's like the show is all that fucking matters. The show is what matters. Like if that's all that fucking matters. It doesn't really matter, I'm not. I don't chase like followers on social media and shit because it's just like the show is all that matters. And learn as much as you fucking can. Learn about the history of this stuff. Learn about who came before you and everything, and then start your show, and then kind of enter into the field. You don't have to start a show, then write a book, or then like start blogging or whatever. It's like, I feel like people just nowadays you can just jump in and throw your opinion in, and I get it. That's the way about everything.
Yeah.
But like I said before, like back in the day, you used to have to read the fucking books and shit to know anything to be able to enter the conversation. Now it's like, well, I looked at Wikipedia for a half hour, and now I'm going to do a show about Spring-Heeled Jack, or I'm going to do a thing about the Beast of Busco. We're going to have a 15-minute show about the Beast of Busco because I read like two web pages. It's like
the death of gatekeepers is kind of like a great thing, but also a horrible thing at the same time. And you have all these publications and radio shows and people who would curate content, and like people who knew if you knew your shit essentially. Nowadays,
right.
Yeah, you have so many people doing everything. You never know who's going to be good or bad, but it's almost too much. You're never going to find the good because you have to shift through 120 people before you even possibly find someone who's going to be good. So that's kind of where I stand on this kind of new age of media. And, you asked before, me and Jim are both in our early 30s.
Yeah.
So we are in that generation that's, brought up pretty much with internet pretty much in our hand. But we grew up like into our teens before we got exposed to everything. But then as teenagers, we got, phones in our hands and everything. But
yeah, I mean, that's just kind of that. I mean, that would be my advice. It's just like
Yeah.
put the work in first before
Mhm.
you know, then figure out what you want to say, or who you want to talk to. It's kind of like, yeah, I've been. I mean, you guys were nice enough. You kind of gave me a heads up what you want to talk about with the show and everything, and it's like, but I've been on some shows where they ask me to be on the show, and then they'll go, well, "What do you want to talk about?" And I'm like, I don't want to fucking talk about anything, dude. I'm giving you my Tuesday night.
I'm
Like
not your
you fucking,
producer.
yeah.
Yeah. That's why
It's
I was
like,
talking about Jim. I'm like, look, this guy has been doing what we want to do for the last 20 years. So I'm going to try to get every ounce of, paranormal and podcasting juice out of him and learn from him why I got him for the 45 minutes to an hour that we got you for. And, just that's what I love about this is to learn from people who've been doing it.
And to go back on what you were saying before about like just don't jump into it without any prior knowledge of anything, like read a book. Like that's kind of like how we're like went into the paranormal podcast. We started with that, but then we're like, okay, let's start doing investigations so we can actually get a feel for
Well,
everything. And so
some
now,
of us were doing investigations before the podcast, but
I mean, I had entities in my house before back in the day, but that's what started me on the trend. But just like we started doing the investigations and we started loving it, and we just started actually like instead of like reading what you like, oh, this is what this does. Now you're actually in the field using
Yeah.
it, and so now you can actually, hey, this is what this does. This is the evidence that we're getting, and this is like we can. I'm not saying give you scientific facts that like ghosts or whatever are real, but this is from our equipment, what we got, what we could show you, kind of thing.
yeah, try to
Yeah.
be as scientifically as possible, or at least to the degree in which we're capable of.
Yeah, without having like degrees into it.
Yeah, but
and I mean, and it's going to sound kind of another bit of advice. It's going to sound kind of paradoxical in a sense because it's like I did kind of grouse about this, but it's like I would if I could go back and give myself advice, and I suppose I would advise other people too. Nowadays, it's like you got to suck it up, and you do have to fucking like promote yourself. You really have to because it's the only way to cut through all the noise. Like you were saying, people, there's so much shit out there that like if you're not, I mean, look, dude, like I said, I promote BOA Wednesday when the show comes out, one more time on Thursday. I'm sure that I miss a whole bunch of people that fucking didn't happen to be on social media Wednesday or Thursday or that period when it flew up their fucking timeline. And it's like, I should probably be promoting it Saturday, Sunday, and Monday too. But it's like, that's not really my style. And I have to, I should take my own advice and sort of like, all right, well, look, you got to be fucking everywhere these days to catch people's attention. And it's, that's just the nature of the beast, dude. Like I saw all these folks who I know who were like really upset about TikTok possibly being banned like a month ago or whatever in January. And it was like, I'm not even on TikTok. And it kind of opened my eyes where it's like, maybe I should just fucking put something on TikTok. Like maybe maybe I should have a fucking Instagram page just because there are people who only go there. There are people who only go on TikTok. There are people who only go on YouTube. It's like everything's really fractionalized, or however you say it. And it's definitely, you got to kind of do it. So I don't begrudge people for that because it's.
I don't think there's one
like a failing on my part, really.
Yeah, I don't think there's a one way to do it. Right? There's no one right answer. However you make it, that's how you make it. And I remember seeing, and it kind of clicked with me. I was watching some stupid, I was spending 2 hours on reels or shorts or something.
Doom scrolling.
I was doom scrolling, and there's one video comes up, and this one person's like interviewing William Dafoe just on like the New York street without even knowing it's William Dafoe. And he's like, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" He's like, "Well, I'm an actor." And it's like, "Do you have any advice to give acting? It's for people." And he's like, "No, do it however it works for you. I'm not like your arbiter of how to get to where you're trying to go." And I'm like, that thank you, William Dafoe. You tried to, not teach me, but you taught me so much.
I do love William Dafoe. Boondock Saints is my favorite.
So I do want to, normally at this point in the show, we would do paranormal reaction videos to stuff I found online and kind of give our arbiter opinion of what's real and fake because, again,
Yeah,
we are the sole deciders of that here on this show.
of course.
But I kind of didn't want to do that because I had an idea, and I think as my thing times out here,
Are you aware of this idea, Jim?
so he's doing it too.
Yeah, I'm gonna be doing it with you, and it's he didn't give me any answers to anything,
Oh.
so I'm
all right.
just as much in the dark.
Now, if you hate this idea, we don't have to do it. But I'm calling
I'll
it
do anything.
a paranormal lightning round. So I've collected 10 paranormal stories.
Yeah.
Pretty famous ones. So you should. I'm pretty sure you know all of them, Tim. But I don't know about Jim.
Yeah. I
So I figured, give your one sentence arbiter's opinion of what it is.
Okay.
Fake government hoax. If like I say like Bigfoot, you can be like, oh, that's an interdimensional being, or no, that's a flesh and blood, cryptid that's walking around. So I think that's a cool thing to try out here. And if
Let's
it's
do
not,
it.
all right. So I think since you're both doing it, I'm going to let Jim answer first, and then you follow up with the answer because I think your answer might be better than Jim's. But
Jim, you're taking a beating here, buddy.
I know, right?
It's just because he beats me up in real life. I got to get him on far away.
All right.
All right. So God, I'm horrible with Russian words, but the Dialov Pass incident, 1959, 9 Russian hikers mysteriously die in the Ural Mountains. Jim?
Pass.
Pass already. Didn't even get one.
Wow.
I didn't even know anything about that.
Oh, wow. All right. Yeah, the Dyatlov Pass incident is, it's famous. It happened actually 1959, it happened on the 2nd of February, 1st or 2nd of February. So, this past weekend was the anniversary.
Yep, that's why.
Yeah. Without giving people the thumbnail, they can Google it. But yeah, Dyatlov Pass. I mean, my thoughts, I think I kind of err on the side of the avalanche theory based on the recent studies that have come out. But I'll always kind of also consider the possibility that there was some kind of secret missile test / cover up rocket type of thing. So a Soviet cover up of weapons testing of some kind.
You're not in the Yeti camp?
Not in the Yeti camp.
Not in the Yeti camp. Okay. All right, we'll move on to number 2, the Taos hum. In New Mexico, there was a low-frequency hum heard by residents throughout, I believe it was a couple of days, if not ongoing. Can't remember exactly.
Is this the one where people got sick because it was like a sonic wave weapon that the government was using?
If that's your opinion on it,
well, I know they used these audio in it was used in Cuba, where people.
Yeah, you're thinking of the Cuba thing. Yeah,
I'm thinking. Of
there's
Cuba
a couple. Well, there's a
audio
couple
signals.
different versions of low frequency hums. I think I want to say another one's in Michigan or something.
Yeah, the Windsor hum.
The Windsor hum, and this is another one of those. So I guess what's your opinions on just generally hums that have been going on and making residents in towns sick?
Everybody has tinnitus.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't really have an opinion. I think it's just some kind of natural. I think they trace the Windsor one. Yeah, it's not maybe Earth frequency. It may also be a confluence of wind combined with a new. I think the one with Windsor, they had found a factory that was on an island nearby that they thought was producing the sound. So it's it has a natural explanation. I don't think it's necessarily anything supernatural or paranormal. So, but I'm not super familiar with the Taos hum, but I know about the Windsor hum and a few of the other hums.
Yeah.
I just know about the Cuban one.
Yeah.
This one, if you don't know, Jim, you're kicked off the show. Mothman.
It's that's 3 ducks in a man suit.
3 ducks in a man suit. No, but official opinion. Do you think demon, cryptid, harbinger, fake hoax?
Fuck, everybody. There's so many different things. Some people say demons. Some say
it's a lightning round. Lightning round.
interdimensional being.
Okay, solid answer. You could say that answer for every answer. And,
Yeah, I know, right?
these days, at least. Mothman, what's your opinion on Mothman?
I'm a fan. I think it's probably. I'm generally skeptical of like everything, so I always err sort of on the side of caution, where it's like, oh, maybe it was just like a giant crane or whatever, like the bird. But if in my heart, like if you were to ask me, like I would like, I kind of hope it's like some kind of interdimensional being that is a harbinger. I don't think it was. If it's not like a prosaic animal, I don't think it's like an undiscovered animal.
Yeah,
that
It's
makes
just a
any
fucked
sense.
up bird.
Right. Yeah. I don't think it's like I don't think it's like, oh, there's a bird we haven't discovered that looks like a person, like or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like
It's like the
so-
Jersey Devil.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
just went on vacation now. All right, Bermuda Triangle, Jim.
I think it's just magnetism.
Yeah, but no.
I'm a huge fan of the Bermuda Triangle. It's kind of like I have a soft spot for nostalgic mysteries that were big when I was a kid that aren't anymore. Like
Yeah,
and some of these might be on your thing, but like, Bermuda Triangle, spontaneous human combustion, Amelia Earhart, those kind
None
of
of those,
stories
so
that used
yeah.
to be in the Time Life books
Yeah.
series, and now they're like you never ever hear about them anymore at all. And it's
I
like,
think there's a lot of science that went on to kind of,
Yeah.
electromagnetism and high pressure gas being released and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of like the rogue wave theory that like
Mhm.
that's why the boats get downed, but then it's like, well, how are the planes going down? So I think there is something strange there. I'm kind of hopeful, I guess you could say, that there's more to the story than just like, oh, this is like weather conditions or whatever. But it's just very interesting that it's not really, you don't you don't hear like, I've been doing this for like 20 years. I think maybe I want to say I know of one case like in the last 20 years where someone went missing in the Bermuda Triangle. So it's like, it's not even growing up. It was like this fearsome thing where it's like, oh shit, the Bermuda Triangle. And now it's like, well,
Yeah.
think about how many people have crossed through the Bermuda Triangle in the last 20 years. And it's like, there's one case that I can think of that was like, oh, that's weird. That actually, this ship went missing in the Bermuda Triangle. So it's not quite as fearsome as it used to be.
It's a black hole. No, just kidding.
Yeah. I like the Bermuda Triangle just because I was in the Navy and we'd sail through it sometimes, but nothing would happen.
See? Yeah, exactly.
And kind of the I guess the new kid on the block in terms of paranormal community, Skinwalker Ranch.
Jim?
Jim?
Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, extraterrestrial. I mean, they got everything on there though, like from ghosts to like aliens to I'm gonna go with the aliens. This is what I'm gonna go with.
Aliens?
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan personally of Skinwalker Ranch. It's kind of like the Bermuda Triangle in a way, where it's like, look, this has been around for like 20 years. They haven't really. I know the TV show tries to purport that they're like
They're just milking it.
capturing anomalies and shit there, but it's like, if this was like the holy grail of like high strangeness, we've never seen anything like the breakthrough hasn't come out of there. So it's like, I'm very cynical after all these years of watching all this, and it's like, okay, well, nothing's
Still
really
nothing.
broken.
Yeah.
Still nothing yet.
Let's see. We'll go with the Lost Colony of Roanoke.
Oh, why am I drawing a blank? I know I think I even did a video on this. That's
You didn't do Roanoke. No, you did a.
Was it? Is it? It's in Virginia, right? Or am I thinking? I'm just gonna.
You're gonna pass.
It wasn't it like a whole village got missing or like everybody disappeared in the from Roanoke.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's the basic version of it. Yeah.
1500s English colony.
Yeah.
Goes missing. The only thing they found was Croatoan written on a tree.
Okay. Yeah. Elaborate hoax. Everybody just moved.
So you don't think anything paranormal happened? You think that it was probably?
I mean, it's probably like folklore just passed down. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's not folklore. It happened. It's just what happened to the people, right, Tim?
My understanding, at least as far as what they know nowadays, is it's almost certain that the people integrated with the Native Americans who were there nearby.
Yeah.
Because when they make it sound like the fucking people left for the afternoon and came back and they were gone, but they left for like months, if not years. Like they were gone. They went all the way back to fucking England, hung around there, and then came back to America, and then the colony was gone, and they put Krakatoa or whatever on the thing. And I believe the thing they wrote on the tree is either the name of the Native American tribe or where the Native American tribe lived. And
I think it was
guess,
like it's a corruption. Like they think it's a corruption. Someone spelled it wrong or something.
right.
Yeah.
But it points pretty directly to the Native Americans in the area. And I think there were like subsequent stories of like people interacting with the Native American tribes in the area, and there was like a few like folks that were either like second generation European Native American.
They could probably
and
do
it was like
genetic
some of them knew
tracing.
English, and it was like okay, so there was some influence of the European influence into this Native American tribe that only could have come from this however many people, like 100 people, integrating with that tribe. Probably because they were like in no shape to like the colony probably was like falling apart or whatever, and the Native Americans might have saved them or brought them in and rescued them because they were probably like we're dying here or whatever. And the Native Americans like come with us, we're going to help you out, and that's and that's it. And then when they came back like months later or years later, it was just an abandoned thing. So I mean that's one of those that's like almost certainly solved, I think, but it'll always kind of keep coming around.
And then this is one of my more favorite ones, the Hat Man, Jim.
Ghost.
You think there's a ghost entity out there called the Hat Man? No, I mean it's a valid. It's actually pretty valid of a theory, Tim.
I mean, I haven't given too much thought to the shadow people phenomenon, but I think it's like, probably some kind of interdimensional thing. That maybe the hat signifies something that we don't, we're not in the know of.
Now you remember, Jim?
Is it kind of thing?
Is it like when you're sleeping and you see an entity with a hat on?
Yeah, it is a shadow.
Yeah.
I think there was a
right, ghost. Yeah.
There was,
I mean, a lot of people attribute it to sleep paralysis, and a lot of it could be, but it's like if people do see, there's certainly some kind of archetype going on with the hat that that's the mystery of it all.
Isn't it like usually two figures? One's wearing a hat, and another one. I forget the whole story behind it, but yeah.
Yeah, the main thing is most people think it's some form of mass hallucination because once the story gets out, right, then it's in the consciousness of everybody as far as like as soon as you hear about it and you're kind of those people who's very influenced, then you might have like dreams of the Hat Man. But
sleep paralysis is the fucking worst though.
Yeah.
Have you guys had it? Like it's just like you're sitting there and you're like, ah.
I had to do a lot. Like it happened to me once when I was like 16 or something, and I had to do a lot of internet research to like calm me down to make sure, like, which is not the best thing to do. Like, was I visited by aliens or was it a demon? And then you get into the actual research is like, well, once your body is disconnected from your brain, then your brain's like feeling all these things, and it's very interesting stuff. But
weird story. My old couch, me and my buddy used to both get sleep paralysis on there all the time.
Well, like, your house is weird, but
it was, and it's in the same spot. Like
Tim, I don't want to cut you off, but we are getting close to Tim's time, so he's got places to go, and I'm sure he's got to get all his stuff. So, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh,
and doing
that's
this
the end of
podcast with
the.
us.
Oh, that's the end of the thing. All right.
Yeah, I took off a few that
All right.
But so that's paranormal lightning round.
There you go.
Let me know in the comments if you liked it or not. Or you may never see it again in the show. Who knows? But thank you so much, Tim, for coming on.
Oh,
Go
my
ahead.
pleasure. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this was great. I knew you were going to be a wealth of information, so I feel like I needed to exploit it while you were here.
There you
I
go.
feel
I hope
enlightened.
I answered all your questions.
Yeah, you
Wow.
definitely did. So I guess one more time, where can everyone find you and Binnall of America, the revival?
Well, BinnallofAmerica.com that'll kick you over to the Spotify page because we got to revamp the website. That's like the last thing that needs to be revived. But we're on Spotify, we're on iTunes, we're on all the podcasting things. And if we're not, go to a different one, or we're on YouTube.
Not on TikTok,
so-
though. Don't look for them on TikTok.
Not yet,
Or
but I'm
Instagram.
thinking
Yeah.
about it.
We'll see.
After I heard about all this money people were making, I said to myself, I want to get some of that free money that TikTok apparently just gives you if people watch your shit. So I'm like, oh, well, if there's money being bandied about, why don't I fucking try and get some? But not
Right.
yet. But we're also, there's Binnall of America on Facebook. That's, you can find us there. And then I personally have, Binnall pretty much on Blue Sky, Twitter, or, you can find me on Facebook or whatever. So that's it. And if you want to read, if you want to keep up with what's going on in the world of the paranormal, the best place you can do that is at Coast to Coast AM, of course. And you go to coastam.com, and then you want to click the articles button there on the home screen. And that'll bring you to all my stuff, and it all has bylines and stuff that's been written by me, and we're putting out maybe.
If you watch this show
they're-
and you aren't familiar with Coast to Coast and you don't read or watch any of that or listen to any of that stuff, you're wrong. Just letting you know, you are wrong.
Yeah, you gotta get on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, thanks for coming along. Thank you all for watching. This has been the Paranormal Nut Podcast with Sean and Jim. And stay tuned. Stay crazy.